Hey friends, over 60% of you are listening to me right now on an Apple product. iPhone, iPad, iTunes. I need your help. The truth is, Apple will make this podcast more discoverable to new listeners the more reviews it has. So I'm here asking you to take a moment and leave a review. If you've gained any value from this podcast, the greatest thing you can do for it, besides spreading the word and telling friends, is leaving a review. It's real simple. If you're on your phone, head over to my podcast page within the Apple Podcast app and leave a review. Or if you're on a computer, you can head over to my podcast page within the iTunes app. That's it. That's all I ask. And if you have other podcasts that you love, do them a favor and do the same for them. It'll make their day. Now let's get this podcast started already. I did a show 2 weeks ago called 25 Things About Me. And I just casually mentioned that I thought if anybody heard a topic that they were particularly interested in and wanted me to elaborate on more, I would gladly do so in a podcast. Now, you've already heard my 10 years in podcasting podcast. And this is the 7 years in bands podcast. I put up a poll on my Instagram at Gary Cantrell in the Instagram story asking you which podcast you wanted to hear first. You voted 10 years in podcasting. You got that one. Now it's time for 7 years in bands. And this is, this was an interesting journey through music. Over the course of 7 years, I played in 6 bands. I'm actually counting on my notes here how many bands I've been in because I wasn't so sure. There's been so many. I've tried over the years so many different times to, just play in different bands to kind of see where it would go. And none of the bands ever really took off like in a major way. I never toured the country with any of these bands, but I don't want to underplay it. I loved each time in these bands, even when they ended roughly. I mean, obviously I didn't like that part of it, but other than that, I genuinely loved the time I spent in each one of these bands. And what really kicked it off for me, and I never thought I'd ever get into like a real band. Honestly, I never thought it would ever happen. In high school, I was so guilty of just being very much, antisocial, awkward. To a certain degree, I still am this person. I know a lot of you, especially those of you that follow me on Instagram, are like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, you're liking, you're commenting my photos. We're talking in DMs. Like, you're a cool dude or whatever. I am incredibly self-conscious, nervous, socially awkward. Like, you meet me in person and it's, I'm going to hope that it goes well, but if I act really nervous and shy, like, it's not your fault. Like, if we're talking and we meet up or whatever, like, and I want to meet you, obviously I think you're cool and it's nothing against you. But anyway, I'm going off on some tangent. Back in the day, I never thought this would be possible just because I didn't have a lot of friends in high school. I had a lot of acquaintances, but I didn't have a lot of friends. And it wasn't until after I graduated that I got into my first band. So that tells you how well that went. I got a Fender Squier. Squier's like the lower end version of a Fender. I guess they make them cheaply in a different country, and they make it look exactly like the Fender equivalent. Not to underplay it. I love it. A Fender Squier Telecaster that I got for graduation in the year 2000. Yes, this was 17 years ago. I feel so old, and I know I have younger people that listen to this, and I just feel so old. So I was given this as a gift, and I started like jamming on it, playing on it. And at this time, music was changing a lot for me in my life. I was discovering underground music. My cousin Larry played a big part in this, and I would encourage all of you, if you're interested in some of the first two bands I talk about, Larry and I really go in depth about these times in episode 5. You can go back and hear us talk for nearly an hour and a half, more in depth about these first 2 bands. But Larry, he was the one that he was instrumental in getting me kind of excuse me, I got all this crap in my throat. Excuse me. I don't edit. I'm very natural, by the way. I should always say this. I don't professionally edit this podcast. You kind of know what you're getting, and if you still listen, I love you for that. I do. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Larry was finding out a lot about like punk rock, underground, what would become like emo and stuff like that. He was listening to bands like Blink-182 and MXPX, and on a more underground level, bands like Goaty Hook, Over It, Lagwagon, all these kind of, bands. And so he turned me on to Saves the Day. That was another one. I probably should have mentioned them too. Saves the Day, Over It. Over It went to high school with us. I had a class with Seth, the bass player, who later would be widely known as Ghoul. By the way, there is not a snowball's chance in hell that Seth is listening to this podcast, but I miss you, dude. I miss all you guys, but like Seth, he doesn't, as far as I know, he doesn't do social media, so like I haven't been able to like randomly pop in and say hi to him. But he was the first one I met in that band, and we had a class together. And I remember telling him, and again, part of it is me being a little bit socially awkward, but when I'm around people I know, I'm a little more comfortable. And I was starting to know Seth a little bit. And so I felt more comfortable to approach a person and have a conversation. I know it's a crazy concept. And I just told him, I was like, yeah, Larry and I are going to this Goaty Hook show in College Park, Maryland. And Seth was like really like excited. He's like, oh, really? Like, he probably doesn't know that I listen to that kind of music. And I really didn't listen to that kind of music. I was just starting to get into that kind of music. And I was like, yeah. He told me about your band. And I remember buying the first 2 Over It CDs from Seth in high school. The Duck EP, which is self-titled, and the Ready series. And I told him about the show. And he's like, oh, dude, you have to check out this band, The Strider. They're amazing. So I go to the show with Larry, and I have no idea, first of all, like what I should wear, because, you just don't know, like you're not comfortable. Like in high school, all I wore was like Metallica shirts. The funny thing about the underground music scene was there was kind of like this unspoken thing about like how you would look. Like, I don't know. It's so weird. And it got way worse as the years went on. I mean, there was a lot more stuff that like towards the end of my tenure, I used to wear like wrestling shirts to piss emo kids off. I'm not even kidding about that. We'll talk about that. I'm sure I'll circle back to that later. Cause I was just so out of it. Let me make a note of that before I forget it. Cause there's a story there. I want to tell this all early. Wrestling shirt. There you go. It's in there. I went to the show with Larry. I had a good time. I really liked the Strider. I was blown away. I met the guys. Super nice. I'm telling you all this because it sets up like a new mindset of how I listen to music, like the bands I'm taking in, how excited I'm getting. Newfound Glory, Saves the Day, Over It, The Strider. These are kind of like the first 4 bands I'm hearing of this kind of similar genre. And it's just blowing me away. It's like a whole new like melody. It's very emotional. Emo. Get it? Right? Yeah. Okay. There you go. I mean, I'd probably have to play clips, but I can't. By the way, I am going to play clips of the bands I was in because I have rights to those. I don't have rights to play other stuff. But if you ask, I will send you links on Apple Music or Spotify. It just changed the whole way that I listened to music, the way I processed it. And when I picked up the guitar, the Telecaster, before I graduated, it was like I was listening to music, so it was manipulating the way I would write songs. Because before, I was writing on all like acoustic stuff. This is crazy. I'm wide awake. I'm on a roll, and all of a sudden my throat gets caught up. Let me take a drink of water. I know you guys are just like, blurt it out, damn it. It was just changing the way I was writing. When I was writing before, and I was playing guitar from 95 up until this point,
And I didn't start really like writing songs until I had my first girlfriend and fell in love for the first time in 1997. And I started writing love songs on the acoustic guitar. And God, I've been, if I'm guilty of anything, it's that I've never really written a song that wasn't about a relationship. Because God, let me tell you, I cling on to that stuff. That could be a whole other show, like exes and past, like thoughts, just stuff that I cannot get out of my mind if I wanted to. And they're not all bad memories either. There's good memories. And I don't get hung up on it. I don't message these people, but I do think about this stuff. And it's probably why it manipulated a lot of my writing. It's probably why I went in that direction for so long. I know. I'm sorry. I just run through these one and done. So we're just going to keep going. Anyway, 10 minutes to get to my point of how I got asked to join my first band, Gatewood. I wrote this song called The Beginning of the End. And this song, The Beginning of the End, was the title of the yearbook that year in high school. And I don't remember all the lyrics. It was something like, if it's going to be me or him, in the end, I'll always win. Now I'm trying to figure it out. And once again, you're walking out the door, and I've heard this a million times before. Oh, God. My voice is not what it used to be. We're reaching the beginning of the end, or something like that. Beginning of the end, whatever. I wrote this song over the course of a day and recorded it on tape. The next day, I get a call from Larry. He says, hey, man, I'm going to Guitar Center with Chris. Chris, for the record, is a wonderfully amazing, talented songwriter, and at this time, drummer. And Chris and Larry were jamming. They were jamming with a fellow named Eddie. It was Chris, Larry, and Eddie. Chris and Larry were going to Guitar Center. No, excuse me, not Guitar Center. Whoa, excuse me, I'm forgetting what year I'm in. This is 2000 and Mars Music was still a thing. Anybody remember Mars Music? I'll wait. Yeah, Mars Music. We're going to Mars Music, and I was just telling Larry about how I wrote the song, and I had a tape. He's like, dude, bring the tape. I'm just curious, like, whatever. And Chris is in the car, and again, I don't know Chris super well. I had met him at a 7-Day Crush show, which was Larry's previous band. Again, a lot of these further into detail are in episode number 5, if you're interested. And I had this tape, and I played this song, and Larry and Chris seemed like they were vibing on it a little bit. Now, look, this is a very rough demo tape, okay? We're talking like cassette tape, portable recorder, nothing fancy. I didn't have a 4-track or anything like that. And they seem like they're digging on it a little bit. You know what I mean? They're digging on it. So we hung out, and then I remember getting a call later in the day after they dropped me off. They're like, hey, we're looking for a singer. And I don't remember exactly in detail every word they said, but it was something to the effect of, we're looking for a singer. Are you interested? And this was right after graduation. I was getting ready to fly to California for a month with my biological father. I guess that's the kindest way I can put it. My God, that's a whole other show. I was out there for a month, and meanwhile, Eddie, Chris, and Larry were jamming all summer and waiting for me to get back, which for the record, I appreciate so much that, they could have found anybody in this time. And considering how my time ended with this band, I kind of feel bad that, holy crap, you guys waited for me and I blew it, essentially, right? I get back from California. They've got, 3-4 songs, and we practiced for 2 days before playing our first show. The story to that was the Over It guys invited us to play a benefit for Mount Vernon High School at a Don Beyer Volvo dealership. And we had 2 days to get our stuff together and be ready to play a show. Now that's crazy. Not a lot of time there. Okay. So we play the show. And let me tell you, this show was rough. I remember about this show, I remember having my notebook in my hand singing the words. We did cover songs, for crying out loud. We were doing covers. I had my notebook in my hand singing the words. I mean, this was just so damn pathetic in my eyes. I mean, the band sounded great. Chris, Larry, and Eddie, my God, they sounded amazing. And I was okay, I guess. I guess it was okay. God damn, I wish we had another week. I felt like I could have been ready. I could have been ready in a week. I feel like, I don't know, is a week the right time? It's got to be. I'm just thinking in my head, how long would it take me? How long did the other bands? I mean, the other bands, multiple weeks. But I felt like if we really stressed it, we could do it in a week. Honestly, we could do it in a week. We'd be ready to go. And this was rough because over it, one of the biggest local bands in the area, they packed this place. Now, this place was not super packed when we played because not everybody was there yet. And typically when you're the opening band in any show, there's always that thing of waiting for other members to get there. So it is what it is. But we played. I mean, it was fine. It wasn't bad or anything. And we played, I think, 2 more shows before we went in the studio. We did a show at Jack's Nightclub, which in Northern Virginia, Jack's was in a shopping center. I don't know, roughly might hold 1,000 people, roughly. And that's really pushing it, I would think. Maybe less, maybe. I don't know. And we played this place called the Greenhouse in Vienna with, Over It was supposed to play. They didn't make it. Staring Back played. Now, Staring Back, oh God, don't even get me started on Staring Back. By the way, we played with them 2 years before they released the record On. Go on your Spotify and iTunes and look up Staring Back On. And just listen to the whole thing. I mean, you could go to tracks like Seasick While Standing Still, X Out, Me, 5 Years From Now, Somewhere Else, The Problem with Fire. Oh my God. God, I could just talk about Staring Back for a half an hour. Super nice guys, by the way. We played with them. Great show. And then we were going in the studio I don't know, a month. No, we did play a few more shows. Excuse me. My timeline is all screwed up. I apologize. Let me rewind that tape. We played in December in Richmond. Oh God, Richmond. Can I tell you guys about Richmond? Richmond is awesome. Okay. We played at a place called Twisters, which was also known as, I think, Nancy Ray Gun. And there's a couple of other names that this club has had. But when we played it, it was called Twisters. And we played with a local band of Richmond called 30 Day Warranty. And they were some of the nicest guys. Richmond, some of the nicest people on the planet. They had no idea who the hell we were. We opened this show. They packed the house for us. Not for us. I mean, they were there for 30 Day Warranty. But a lot of times in shows, people either don't show up until later or they show up and they don't stand in front of the stage because they're the opening band, who gives a shit. And they packed in front of the stage for us. And my God, I really appreciated that. And it went so well that we got invited back just a little less than a month later to play the same place with Over It and Mock Orange. Mock Orange, God. Mock Orange. I just hear the song work in my head. The bass, boom, sorry. Look up Mock Orange, We Work. That's a great song. Or All You Have. The song I was humming is We Work. They were awesome. Okay, now, studio. We go to the studio. Now, at this point, we've made friends with a guy named Pete, who used to play in a band called Standard Issue. He was in a band Standard Issue at this time. And Pete was going to help produce this recording. Now, I don't remember all the particulars, how we met him, how we thought this was the guy to be in the studio with us. And I'm not saying this like in some condescending, I hate Pete way. Not in any way, shape, or form. I loved his band, by the way. Loved that band. They're not around anymore. Pete is playing guitar in a band called Fun Size right now. They're really good. Check them out. Featuring members of River City High and Pete from Standard Issue, who... Did he play in River City High? I think he did go on to play in River City High. Anyway, River City High, check out Won't Turn Down. Great record. So Pete was going to be brought in to help produce this 4-song demo EP that we were doing. And we were recording with Ben Mellett, Nothing But Noise. Go to nothingbutnoise.com. Ben is still in business over 20 years later. Yeah, he started before we got there. He's still going strong. I love Ben. He's got an incredible personality, sense of humor. Please check Ben out. If you're in Virginia, or hell, if you're not in Virginia and you just want to record with some cool ass, chill ass, laid dude, like, record with Ben Mellett, Nothing But Noise. Great equipment, great personality, really easy to work with. Nothingbutnoise.com. NBN Studios on Twitter, Facebook, and all that good stuff. Anyway, so we go in to record these songs. We're going to do Renegade Angels, Where Am I, Watching Over You, and there was one more that started with a W, and now I can't remember. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. I think Larry and I did the same thing in episode 5 where we tried to remember the names. And we spent a whole day recording all the instruments. So in one day, in an 8-hour shift, we did all the instruments, the bass, the guitar, multiple guitar layers. It was recommended us to do multiple guitar. And you'll hear in a second, I'm actually going to play you guys a clip here in a moment. And you can hear for yourself the layers upon layers of guitars, which came out well, I think. Good call on the layering of the guitars. Because we only had one guitar player. We did not have 2 guitar players. I will get to that in a moment. And then we decided now it's time to do the vocals. And this was on a separate night. And Pete was there. As he should be. I don't know why I said and Pete was there as if he wasn't supposed to be there. I don't know. I'm weird at storytelling. But if you guys are still listening, you know I'm weird at storytelling and you like it. And I'm doing my vocals and it's not going so well. Like, and I feel like a lot of this was Pete. He was kind of really particular, as he was about every other instrument. He wasn't picking on me. He was not picking on me. He was being particular about every instrument. But I am rough around the edges when it comes to vocals. I'm kind of weird with vocals. Like, if I didn't write the song, and a lot of these lyrics I did not write, if I did not write the song, it was hard for me to sing it, which sounds really weird. Because I was kind of listening to like Chris and Larry kind of giving me ideas of how they wanted it, done. So I do the vocals and it's just going kind of rough. We managed to get Renegade Angels done, which let me show you a little bit of Renegade Angels right now. Check this out. Now, I know what you're thinking, because a lot of people that have heard that after I tell them, oh, I sucked, I blew it, they're like, what are you talking about? This sounds decent. Like, first of all, I'm my own worst critic. But I don't know, man. I feel like I've done better vocal work over the years, and you'll hear some different clips, and you can be the judge yourself by the end of this podcast. But it just, I guess it wasn't up to everybody's standard. And I get it. I do get it. So we then had Chris sing Where Am I? Which, by the way, I used to joke, one take Barrett. He'd go on the drums, and although he did multiple takes, he would play like one take, and I'm like, holy shit, this is awesome. Keep it. Boom. Then he went on the vocals, and I was like, man, this guy sounds gold. Check this out. This is Where Am I? This is Chris. Check it out.
Where am I? Stuck in this horrid frame of mind. No one can find me here. Don't even try and track me down. It seems that I've come to realize that this answer's on my grind. The front and back to look down low. Despite everything that I know, things are looking down for me. So I just take the role and take it. It's better. How can you leave me and stop it? Just waiting for the gifts from you I didn't get. I'm tired of this. Where am I?
I love Chris. He's amazing. Check him out too. Look him up on Instagram and Facebook. Chris Barrett Music. He's got some great music. Check him out. So I think at some point, I remember going up to the bathroom, upstairs to the bathroom, and I can kind of hear in the vents a little bit. Pete's kind of talking with the guys, like, I don't know about this Gary guy. I don't know if this is going to work out. It's a little rough. And the guys, you know, they're like, hey, man, I don't know. What are you thinking? What are you thinking? And somehow, and I don't remember exactly what happened, but somehow it ended up on me not singing anymore. And I'm like, all right. So I get an opportunity to play second guitar because we don't have a second guitar, and they would search for a vocalist. And again, I don't remember how we got from me not singing to me trying out for second guitar. I just believe it was some kind of conversation, but I don't remember all the details. They're a little shady. What I do remember, though, is going over to Chris's house for that audition, and it did not go well. I was nervous. At this point, I was not super polished on guitar. Like, I was very decent playing guitar, but I was not super polished. You know, like, I just wasn't smooth like they wanted. Because, you know, I give Eddie a lot of credit, even though sometimes he could kind of come off like a dick. And I'm not saying there's a reflection on Eddie as a whole, because there were other times where he was really cool, but sometimes he could be a dick. Everybody can be a dick sometimes. I'm not singling Eddie out here. But it was, you know, he was very good on the guitar, I always thought. And he had him and Chris, my God, they knew each other forever. And they together really played really well in sync. And so you get me, and maybe my palm muting is not so perfect, or I'm just, you know, off rhythm a little bit. And it was just really rough. And going back to the lack of self-confidence and being socially awkward, and all these things started rushing to the forefront, and I'm sweating and I'm just so nervous. And I just tell Chris as I'm getting ready to leave, like, hey, man, I don't think this is going to work out. I'm just going to peacefully bow out. And I could tell, you know, he understood, but he was definitely a little upset about it. That's the vibe I got. And I walked away from this band. They later went on to get this guy, Jeremy, who played guitar and sang. And they never recorded with Jeremy. That band ended up breaking up, which leads to the next band. But I would have loved to have heard him on vocals, because from what I heard him live, he sounded decent. And so there you go. During one of these Gatewood shows, now I would continue to go to their shows after I left the band, because I wanted to show these guys that there was no ill will, and really there wasn't. I was always a little, you know, jealous that they were up there having a good time, and, you know, there was part of me that, you know, they'd say, come on, Gary, you know, you want to come up and sing one with us? But I got it. And it just seemed like the crowds got a little bit bigger after I left, which kind of sucked too. But anyway, I met this guy at one of those shows. His name was Jason. Jason knew Jeremy. That's how he, I guess, found out about the show. And I started talking with Jason. Jason's like, I play guitar. I'm like, well, what a coincidence. I play guitar too. We should jam sometime. And we got together. Him and his mother picked me up. His mother is just one of the nicest people on planet Earth that I remember. And we went over to his apartment and we jammed for like 2 or 3 hours. And we wrote this song that would later be called Machine. And I'll have a clip for that for you guys in a moment. And we're like, what should we call our band? And we were going to call ourselves the Youth Machine. Oh my God, the Youth Machine. I remember that. That was fun. We later scrapped the Youth Machine when we picked up our newer members, but Jason and I went to another Gatewood show together, and we talked with Larry, and we're like, yeah, man, we're starting a band. And Larry's like, oh, that's cool, man. I don't know how Gatewood's going to go down, but I might be down to jam. And, Chris might be down to jam, because I don't know if it was something with Jeremy or something with Eddie, but clearly those are the two who are on to different things from this point. So I guess one of those two guys was the issue. I'm just projecting there. I don't know. I have no idea. And so becomes this grumbling that there's interest in the four of us, me, Jason, Larry, and Chris, getting together and jamming. And we do. And this was in the summer of 2001. And everything just seemed to really click. I realized that I needed to write more. I needed to contribute more, because Chris was trying to contribute some, and I was having a problem. I think I talked about this in episode 5, but just a very brief bit of it again. If I don't write it, I have a tough time singing and playing it. It's kind of rough for me. And Chris, would invite me over and we try to work on it. And me being young and immature, I just kind of took it like, oh, I'm at boot camp. I think that's what I called it. And Chris got really pissed. And I don't blame him, because I was kind of being a dick about the deal. But we later realized that Larry should play and sing songs that, are written by those guys. And like whatever songs I write, I should sing. And for the songs that we did have, that seemed to work so well. So before we played any shows, we went into the studio and we played, we did 2 songs. We did Machine and we did Slow, Steady, and Silent. That's all one song. Slow, Steady, Silent. The song I did, or I sung on Machine, was the first song we played together in a band, and check it out here. I love that song. It was always fun. Chris and I would always make eye contact towards the end, right at the cut, and I'd just be like super head banging, looking at him, and he'd be like head banging, drumming. Like we always had this moment. If I could ever get Chris, I know he's so busy. We've talked about getting him on the podcast, but I wanted to like jog his memory about this time where in this song where we used to just do this thing. We'd make eye contact at the end and just rock out so hard. So we did the 2 songs and we played our first show about 3 months later in Norfolk, Virginia. The place called Cogan's. We drove, 3, almost 4 hours to play this show. It was a lot of fun. We played with bands called Next Big Thing. That was the name of their band. And we played with another band called Pacific Radio Fire. Pacific Radio Fire was like my very first introduction to like screamo music. And this was about 2 years before screamo music was like super cool, for the record. And from there we played, I want to say 3 or 4 shows before we went in and cut a 4-song thing. We did Leap of Faith, 6 Months to Extinction, where I did this really bad James Hetfield impersonation. I mean, it was really bad. I don't know if I have a clip of that. Let me look on my phone and see if I have that song. If I do, I'll share it, but I don't know if I have it. Good Day Gone. No, I don't have it on here. Okay. Sorry, guys. It was really bad. There was like, anyway, come on! Dan, 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 dan. Like completely different singing than like what an emo band would do or whatever. 6 Months to Extinction, Leap of Faith, and God, I don't remember the other two names. Oh, Your Worst Mistake. That was a fun one. I wish I still had that recording somewhere. I thought I did. Oh, God. I'm going to have to look on my Google Music. No, I'm not going to look right now, but these were kind of fun to do. And we played a few more shows. The last show we played ever was in Williamsburg in June of 2002 with a band called Races to April. God, look up Races to April. They put out a CD. Oh, God, is this on Apple Music now? I got to look this up too. Sorry. Probably not, but let me just look it up anyway. Apple Music, Races to April. I know you guys are really pissed. Sorry. Oh, it is on here. Okay. Look up the Syntax and Everything, Races to April. Now they put out this CD after, like years after this show. They were just starting to kind of find their footing, but they were awesome. Check out Races to April. We played our last show. Jason and I really had like this. We were so on like indie. Like we were listening to bands like Coheed and Cambria and like other like bands like Counterfeit. Oh God, Counterfeit. You can't even find them on Apple Music, I don't think. But like either look on YouTube or I think there's like one song on Apple Music called Lying in Traffic. This song is so amazing. You got to hear this. I mean, I can't play it for you, but look it up, please. Lying in Traffic. We wanted to go in this more like indie, like Mock Orange, Coheed and Cambria, Counterfeit type direction. And Larry and Chris were more of like pop punk, more like Over It, Staring Back, Saves the Day. Not that Jason and I didn't like this stuff, but we really wanted to do some more like indie kind of stuff. And I don't remember exactly what happened. I really don't. I remember taking my stuff home, and Chris asked me like, "Dude, why are you taking this stuff home?" And I'm like, I'm going to put caster wheels on my half stack. And he's like, "Can't you do that here?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got the wheels at home," which is so stupid because I could just brought the damn wheels at home. I should have said, I want to bring my tools or whatever. Whatever. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I remember it was some bull crap cop-out excuse, and I was taking my gear home. And I think Jason took his home, too. And then, like, a week or two later, we had a band meeting because there was, like, there was this tension, and I don't remember everything. Like, again, I want to get Chris on here, too, because he might remember better than I would. But we just decided that we were going to split up. And another band in 1 year split up and gone. And I'm just like, at this point, I'm just like heartbroken because I'm just like, man, this stuff ain't working out. Cause like, man, I can't keep a band together. I can't do nothing right. It's just such a bummer. There's some guy backing up his truck out front. Sorry if you can hear that. So Jason and I all throughout the summer are jamming a little bit. We're writing a little bit. And it wasn't until the next year in 2003, I want to say either right before or right after Jason and I went to Asbury Park for Skate and Surf Festival, which, by the way, was an amazing festival in 2003 and 2004. It went to complete crap when the promoters like had some sort of a fight and they became like the Bamboozle and all this other crap. And the festival just got way too big from what I remember. But in the early years of Skate and Surf, 2003, 2004, oh man, Asbury Park Convention Hall was the place to be, buddy. Let me tell you. So either right before or right after, we're in Best Buy, and this lady comes up to us. She says, "Hi, I wonder if you guys can help me. You guys kind of dress similar to my son," or something like this. And I'm looking for some music for my son. What can you guys recommend? And I don't remember exactly what we recommended. Maybe Atreyu. Well, I feel like Brian already knew who the hell Atreyu was. He probably did. Who am I thinking? Like, yeah, we turned him on to Atreyu. Maybe a Static Lullaby. Oh, God. Static Lullaby. Withered. That's my jam. But different Screamo, because our minds were really in Screamo at this point, which is kind of interesting because we were on the indie tip, and now we're kind of like Screamo because we're listening to a ton of like Thrice, Artists in the Ambulance, which is another amazing record. We're listening to Thursday's War All the Time. Like, our heads are in a screaming match at this point. And we give her, I guess we gave her our number, or she gave us his. I don't remember. God, I'll have to ask Brian. And we linked up with Brian. I'm sorry. That's just the long and short. We're like, look, we're looking to start a band. We hear you play bass. Now we're looking for, I guess, a vocalist and a drummer. Brian knows Mike and Jordan. Mike the drummer, Jordan the singer. And we start writing songs. We take the song Machine and we repurpose it. And I don't remember what that was called. It had a longer name. I don't remember what it's called now. But I got so damn sick of playing that song after a while. Let me tell you, I'm not gonna lie to you. I got so sick of playing that song. And we had other songs. We went into the studio, as a matter of fact, and we recorded Drift Red, Broken Lines, and I don't remember the other one now. The one that rips off Metallica. I don't remember what that one's called. Here's Broken Line, by the way. Check this out.
Crashing down the center zone, my feet outside a video zone. See with my eyes. Broken ribs, a broken heart, sometimes set fire to the stars. So far away. Yes, I did. So about this time, well now it's broken. The light has gone. You've seen the line. Talk about this time, right as broken. The light has gone.
Yeah, you can hear Jordan. He was crazy with the vocals. He was like a lunatic with the vocals. We played our first show at Jack's. I had a really bad haircut. If you look up my Instagram, where I'm wearing a From Autumn to Ashes shirt with my hair parted down the front with spiked in the back, it just looked ridiculous. I was trying to copy the guy from A Static Lullaby and failed absolutely miserably at doing this. Yeah, really badly failed. But I wanted that hair. I just thought it was the dopest hair ever. I think I even told him that at Skate and Surf Fest. I'm like, dude, your hair is awesome. Which, why would I say that to another dude? I can't believe I just said that on the podcast right here. I complimented some other guy on his hair. That's how seen things were becoming in 03. Let me tell you, it was starting to get real, folks. Starting to get real. Good God, man. We played shows, a couple of shows throughout the summer. I actually met John from Run 6 Blank. We'll get to that in a moment. He was filling in for Jason on a couple of the shows because Jason was on vacation with his wife at the time. And we wanted to play a couple of these shows, including Bush Hill Church, which Bush Hill, I mean, I'll get into this more when I get to Run 6 Blank because I later joined that band. Bush Hill was like a fun place to see a show. Like, kids always turned up. And I say kids now. I hate it when I used to say that. I just sounded like such a douchebag. But I guess I could almost say kids because I was like older than a lot of these people. But the people turned up. I mean, people really turned up big. And so when you were invited to play a Bush Hill show, you didn't turn that down. Like, you just didn't do it. Oddly enough, one of the bands on that show was Dumbstruck, who would later become Amity, who are nowhere to be found now. But Amity put out this really amazing EP in 2004 called Armor Vincent Omnia. Oh my God. Go on YouTube Okay, do this. Go on YouTube, type in Amity, Everyone is Hardcore. Pause this podcast, go and listen to that, and tell me that's not amazing. By the way, Dumbstruck was not Amity yet, and they weren't playing that song when I saw them in 2003, like a year before this, but they were amazing. And they let me borrow their Marshall head because I didn't have a proper amplification at this time. Really nice guys. And I think at some point Mike, the drummer, left, and we got a guy from a band called 20 Ounce Nothing to fill in. I don't even remember that guy's name, but he was kind of nice, and he filled in for like 2 shows. And then we got this other guy, Daniel, really nice guy. He was like a super metal head. Like, he could play fast AF. Like, Daniel is a crazy, insane drummer. My God, he was the best addition to our band, hands down. Then it came to the fall, and we were starting to write new stuff, and this is also shaky for me now. I don't remember the timelines, the topics, but somehow Jason said he was done with the band. And I agreed with Jason we should be done with the band. Things just weren't going well, I guess. Things were rough for a while with the band. We were trying to figure things out. Switching drummers 10 times and, maybe creative differences and things like that. And for whatever reason, I don't remember every last detail. I try to, but I don't. Jason and I were talked on the phone, and we decided, yep, we're going to leave the band. We're going to meet up with the guys, and we're going to leave the band. And I thought about it over the weekend. We met at Olympians, this restaurant not too far from me. And all of us sit down together. And I had told Jason before we went into Olympians, hey man, I changed my mind. I think I want to stick this out with the band. I just thought of, number one, Jason and I had already been in one other band, and it didn't work out. And we were already less than a year in, and we weren't working out. That, and, I really liked Brian and Jordan and Daniel, and I figured that, we should stick it out. And Jason disagreed. He said, well, dude, you got to do what you want to do. I'm leaving the band. So he says, I'm quitting. I'm leaving the band. And, the guys are they're upset about it from what I remember, but he left the band. And we're trying to figure out what we're going to do. Brian's like, I'll play guitar. I can play guitar, and we'll just get another bass player. And I'm trying to remember how this worked out now. Oh yeah, we did get another bass player. Sorry, I'm just remembering all the timeline. Like a couple of days later, Jason calls and says, I want back in the band. What do you think? And I'm like, in the most selfish, dickish way, like, nah, dude, like, you said you were leaving, like, bye. I wish I never did that. I will go through life 100 times and say I wouldn't change a damn thing. If there's one thing I could have changed, I would have changed that. Honestly, I would have, because Jason and I have never been the same since. We stopped talking after that. We hung out maybe one time, like 6 months later. That was awkward. I ran into him and my cousin Larry, who I wasn't talking to, at Best Buy. That was awkward, even though we talked for a little while. And for years, I've always wanted to, apologize to him. And it wasn't until, I don't know, a couple of months ago, Larry and I, we reconnected, and we were in Toys R Us because we're children, and we like to window shop at Toys R Us every single weekend. It's just what we do. Don't judge me. You can judge him. I don't care. Don't judge me. And I ran into Jason, and we had a 30-minute talk in the middle of the toy aisle. The toy aisle. Jesus Christ. I think it was like the collectible corner aisle at Toys R Us. And I got to finally apologize to him. And as far as I know, it's all water under the bridge. He said he was going to add me on Facebook, and he never did. So I don't know what that's all about. But Jason, I got no beef with you, dude. So we decide that he's not coming back. Brian switches to guitar. We find this other guy, Jake, who plays bass. We recorded a new 4-song demo, which I don't even remember what the hell this thing sounds like. I think Brian gave it to me on his iPod one time, but I don't know where the hell it is. So we play a few shows, and I'm having problems. Again, because a lot of these songs are songs that I'm not writing. I'm learning these songs. And the band is switching more from screamo to more hardcore. And in hardcore, you have breakdowns. It's dun 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 ding. It's not dun 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 ding ding. Every little chug 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 was different. And I struggled to death on this. And it just slowly became something I did not want to be a part of. And the band was pissed at me because I was starting to book my own shows, booking other bands and shows. And I booked our band on a show, and I made us play last. They took it as an insult. They're like, oh, nobody's going to be here. Nobody's going to stick around. I caught hell for that. I know they were pissed because I rented a PA, and Jordan trashed the microphones, smashed them on the ground. I can laugh about it now, 200 hours later, but at the time I was pretty pissed. And so I went over to his house, Brian's house, where we practiced, and I got my stuff and I left. I was done. I was tapped out. And at the same time, I'm pissed because I'm just this is the third band I'm in, and it's just not working. This really sucks. It was tough. It was tough to leave. Honestly, it really was. But probably, I don't know, a month or so later, I'm getting a phone call. And it's from John. Remember John, who filled in for Jason on a couple of shots for Ghosts in the Gears? Well, John is the frontman / bass player / singer for Run 6 Blank. John is super talented. I love John, for the record. I get a call that, hey, man, we're looking for a guitarist. Our guitarist, Curtis, left, and we need a new second guitarist. And we heard you're available, and we'd like you to try out for the band. Awesome. There's only one problem. What's that? I don't have any more amps, big amps. At this time, I had moved out of my mother's house. I was living with my cousin, James. Good God, James. I'm thinking of his Facebook name, James. Jimmy. I was broke. I was blowing the $200 a week I made at CVS on bull crap, and I had no money, and so I sold my half stack for $130 at Guitar Center. God, that was rough. I wish I never sold that half stack ever. I really want that half stack back, but whatever. One day I'll buy another one when I start a new band. More on that later. So I got no gear. I have a practice amp, and we're like, we'll figure it out. We'll make the best of it. Learning from John was really fun because John, he is very precise too, but he would be patient with me. He really would. He took his time, taught me the stuff, and I was playing lead guitar, which was out of my comfort zone because I was always more of a rhythm guitar player instead of a lead guitar player. But we had, I mean, they called me in like July, and the first show that we had wasn't until my birthday on August 27th. Mark that on your calendars, ladies and gentlemen. At Bush Hill. And coincidentally, my cousin and I, we were booking this show because we had booked Victory Records' own Action to be the touring act playing this show. And the funny thing is that as I was still mastering these songs, everything that could have went wrong during the show. And I mean everything went wrong during the show. Brooks, our rhythm guitar player, broke, I think, at least 2 strings. Okay. So now they're relying on me. I think John even broke a string. Pat might have broken a drum head, maybe. Like when I say everything went wrong. So I'm the guy who knows the least about the band because I'm only a month in. I'm still not super polished on this music. And Brooks's freaking strings are broken. And I'm trying to play my part, but it's just like it's a lead part, and it just sounded really weird. People didn't care. They cheered. They loved it. The one thing about Run Six Blank that I love is that they had a huge turnout all the time. I mean, people knew this band. They loved this band. They supported this band. They knew the lyrics. This is the first time I was in a band where people sung the lyrics back to you. Cool as hell. A song we did called Neurotica. Check this out. We would always close with that song. People love that song. But we played quite a few shows. Trying to think how many shows we played. I don't remember exactly how many shows we played, but we played quite a few. And they were all fun. Like, we played at this other church for our second to last show, and for a reunion show that we did, which turned out very well. A future band I would join, Starlit Eyes, opened for us on said reunion show. We broke up. I guess I kind of skipped it there too. Our last show we ever played was at the Franconia roller rink. While it was still a roller rink, it's now a laser tag place. And then we played in some church place. Like, we played 2 halves. We played like earlier material at this roller skating rink. Then we moved the equipment to this other place and played the second half of the show. That was kind of like an interesting, unique way to do it. But the band was breaking up. Essentially, Brooks and Pat were going to college, and I don't remember exactly where they went to college. I want to say they both went up to college in New York. I want to say. I'm probably wrong on that. Maybe one of them for sure in New York. Point is, they were not going to be around to be in this band. And we decided it was time to split up. And so we did our last show, and then around January, the guys were back in town for holidays, and we decided, let's do a reunion show. So we played a reunion show, and that went very well. It was one of our biggest crowds we ever had. People knew the words. They sang along. I mean, this was about as cool of a reunion show as you could possibly do. I mean, super awesome. In between Run Six Blank breaking up and the reunion show, I got an invite to try out with this other band called Crisis Point. Justin was the main guy from the band. He was the guitar player. I knew him from high school, and he said, "Hey man, what have you been up to?" I ran into him at the bus stop because he and I we didn't drive, and so as a result, we were always relying on transportation. And I was running into him a couple times at the Franconia Springfield Metro station. It's a big bus hub too, not just the trains, but and he's like, "Yeah, what have you been up to?" I'm like, "Yeah, playing in some bands or whatever." And he's like, "Man, I'd love to work with you sometime. Like, if that's interesting to you, I'm in a band right now. We're looking for a singer. Here's a CD we're looking for, a singer. Maybe you can practice to some of this stuff and maybe you can write something, because I don't even think they had lyrics for the stuff. I was just writing. I was going to be tasked to write some of this stuff for them. And so with that being said, what was it? No Room for Argument. That was the first song I ever did with the guys. So that was really, really cool. I got the gig on that song, and I remember the practice space was interesting because we were practicing in a storage facility, which is rather interesting because I didn't know you could do that. There's a place in Alexandria called Uncle Bob's, and I don't recall if they still do it, but at one point they did it where you could just haul in all your stuff. They have power. They supplied power, and you could rehearse. That was cool. It was one of the more unique places I ever practiced with a band. But it also helps because a lot of, if you live in an apartment, you can't bring a full band. Excuse me. You can't bring a full band into an apartment and jam like crazy. It's just not going to work out. I only played, I want to say 3 shows with Crisis Point, and then we ended up breaking up. We did record a 3-song demo. Here is a sample of one of the songs we did called So Much for Feeling Alive. I'll tell you the story about this one in a minute.
What gift will I get to give? Watch my heart burn, never process. You just spectated a thing you there. Search your back without even thinking of turning around. No sign of a conscience, ain't no trace of a friend. You left without brought your consent. Now tell me, are you content with both and the trigger?
So there was this girl that I met when I was working. I used to work for CVS. And there was this pizza joint down a couple of buildings down. There was this girl, Emily. Yeah, I'll drop her name. Fuck it. I'm not going to do last names, but sorry if I just dropped the F-bomb there. I just realized that I did that. Totally natural here on the podcast, guys. Anyway, I would go down to get lunch there because I used to be really big and I used to eat pizza like every day or sandwiches from there every day. Or she would come over to buy sodas for the restaurant. And we would talk just casually and, somehow we got into hanging out. And I think she had a boyfriend at the time. Maybe that was kind of on the fritz. Maybe it was a little over. I don't know. Found out that she loved Fall Out Boy, by the way. This was in 2005 when Take This to Your Grave was their top album. And I don't even know why I mentioned that. Oh, yeah, because I found out she loved it. And I just remember falling for this girl. Like, it's like, wow, she's cool. I mean, yeah, she smokes. That kind of sucks, but she's cool. I kind of like her, attitude about stuff. And, we started, hanging out a little bit, because I didn't drive. So, my mother lived behind the shopping center. I didn't live with my mother at the time, but I would get over there hours early. Number one, because I had to take a bus. Number two, because I was hoping to run into her. And she's like, oh, yeah, you can jump in my car. I got to go up to this place or that place to get stuff for the restaurant or whatever. And so I'd ride around with her and we just hang out. And I just remember telling her, I built up the courage to tell her how I felt, hey, I'm really starting to crush on you. This is becoming something for me anyway. And I got that damn friend zone. And fellas, I know y'all, some of y'all, maybe some of y'all good looking dudes, y'all might not have never gone through this, but your boy Gary here, slightly chubby, slightly chubby, got to work a little harder on the personality to impress a girl kind of deal. Got friend zoned a lot. I remember her just telling me, like, I don't like you like that. And my heart was broken, shattered, because this is one of the few times where I actually had the courage to approach the girl and be like, yo, I'm into you. And she wasn't having any of it. Like, she wasn't like a bitch about it. Like, she was cool about it. She was like, I don't like you like that. And I'm just like, Anyway, that I proceeded to have a Lloyd Dobler say anything moment to try to win her, which failed miserably. Oh my God, this is the fact that I'm sharing this on a podcast right now with you. It's supposed to be about me being in bands, but it's a backstory to a song you just heard. You guys should feel loved and respected because this is the most embarrassing story that I'm about to share with you. But I loved the movie Say Anything. John Cusack played Lloyd Dobler, and he was trying to get this girl, and they had this fight, and she would not talk to him, so he showed up outside of her door with a boombox and held it up to the sky in hopes that she would hear it because it was the song that they first made love to. Well, there was a song by the band From First to Last called Emily. And I didn't have a boombox. Well, I had a boombox, but I didn't. I thought, because, again, the proximity of my mother's deck to the back of the pizza restaurant where Emily would go out back and smoke, if I was yelling loud enough, she could hear me. And so I just decided I'm going to get out on the balcony and sing this song, Emily, at the top of my lungs. You should see how red my face is right now. I am so freaking embarrassed about this story right now. But that's how much I love my podcast listeners. Like, this is real. This is honest. This is unedited, unfiltered. No bullshit here. I'm telling you the truth, guys. I sang this song at the top of my lungs, possibly out of key, to this girl who could not give two craps. But she did the kind of, oh, let me drive over and see if he's all right. I'm going to try to call him and check on him. Yeah, I avoided going to that pizza shop forever. And when I was in CVS, it was rough to try to avoid her whenever she would come over and buy stuff. But I think she kind of was onto it too, and she would go to other stores and buy stuff that she needed and stopped coming over there. And then I think she stopped working at the pizza place altogether, possibly because she had a new job, not because she didn't want to see me. Let's not make it about me here, Gary. So the song So Much for Feeling Alive was about that feeling. Whereas, like, I gave all I had to give and watched my heart burn in the process. You just spectated and then you left, turned your back, not even thinking of turning around, no sign of a conscience, no trace of a frown. Yeah, that's the words, or part of the words for that song. And it's just, man, it's just so crazy to think about that now that I play that clip. See, you get these random stories and they bring that up. I hope Emily's doing well, by the way. I don't talk to her anymore. Nothing that she did wrong. I'm terrible at being a communicator a lot of times, and I just lose contact with people, and it's usually my fault. I'll own up to it. But she was cool. I think we eventually talked in like 2006, maybe. We found each other on like MySpace. Yeah, MySpace, buddy. And maybe we talked on there, and that was it. But we never hung out. We never hooked up, got together, anything like that. Although I was wishing. I think I then found her on Facebook and added her and saw that she had like a bunch of kids and life seems to be going well for her. So props, respect. What else? Let me see. Sorry. I'm just trying to think of what happened next. Oh, yeah. Crisis Point. They broke up. Sorry. that was the end of that. I mean, that band broke up. I don't remember exactly why. I remember Justin just kind of spazzing out and ending the band. Like, he was just like, I'm done with everything. I'm done with you guys. I'm done with the band. I don't remember why. I think he thought I was like macking on his girl or something, which I wasn't. I mean, she was good looking, but I wasn't macking on her. Please. I'm not that much of a dick. But the band broke up, and here I was again without a band, nothing to do. I was still going to shows regularly, and I remember going to Flipside Festival in 2006 and seeing the band Starlit Eyes. I remember Starlit Eyes opening up for Run Six Blank at our reunion show earlier that year in January. Nice guys, super nice guys. They did not have a dedicated singer to the best of my memory. I believe that Brian, the one guitar player, I believe he did some of the singing. Did Chris do any singing? I don't remember. I really don't recall. Maybe it was just Brian. I'm sorry. I don't remember. Did Chris sing? Maybe Chris sang. I don't know. I want to get Chris on this podcast too, so we can talk as well. I put out a MySpace bulletin. Yes, I'm dating myself here. I know. That I was looking to join a band. I was looking to, whatever. I wanted to play in a band. Oddly enough, Starlit Eyes had put out a bulletin either before mine or right after mine, but somehow ours were like around the same time. And I get a message from Chris, and he says, dude, I just saw this. We just posted something about looking for a singer. You want to try out for the band? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Cool thing was we practiced at the drummer's house, LJ. LJ, his house was in Rose Hill, which was where my grandmother used to live. And going back to Rose Hill brought all kinds of memories back. So I enjoyed going to LJ's house. We practiced in his shed, which when I say shed, it's not like the derogatory kind of thing you might think like, oh, a shed, some rusty ass shed. No, this was like a carpeted, like it had internet and computers in it. Like it was a nice shed. Okay. So the band practiced in the shed, and, I did a few songs. I got the gig. These guys were younger than me. This was the first time that I really played with like younger guys other than Run Six Blank, because they were a little bit younger than me too. Playing with the younger guys is interesting. It's kind of cool in one sense because they're still in high school and they're connected to people. So like, and they're way more like, they have a lot more friends than I have. So like they're drawing a bunch of people to the shows, which really helped us. And they just had so much energy, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, we played, I don't know how many shows before we did our first CD. God, I don't even remember. I don't even remember. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, a lot of people turned out. They were showing up. They enjoyed kind of what we were doing, and I had a blast. Being in Starlit Eyes, being the vocalist, the front man in Starlit Eyes, was the most fun I think I ever had in a band out of all the bands. I loved all the bands, but being a front man, singing with these guys, their energy on stage, hanging out with them, it was a lot of fun, a lot of energy. I enjoyed it so much. We had the opportunity to play for Boys Like Girls, the band, if you remember them. They had some great songs. 5 Minutes to Midnight, Thunder. Probably some other songs that are in the background of my mind. That first CD they did with those songs, though, we opened for them on their CD release show. They were super nice guys, super nice guys. We played a lot of shows. Like I played more shows with Starlit Eyes than I played with any other band I was ever in. It came time to do our first EP, 4-song EP together, and we went into the Space to record it. The Space was a place above the print shop where I worked, and it was run by the brother of the owner of the company that I worked for, and they had a space up there to do shows, which we did a few, and then a recording studio was in there, and that's where we recorded our 4-song demo EP or whatever. And one of the songs, which I'll play a clip for you, called California's Callin'. This was my favorite song that we did. I am forever, when it comes to music, I'm forever a sucker for ballads. I really am. I love ballads, slower, sad songs. This song really wasn't sad, but like I love the slower kind of jams. Let me give you the clip and then I'll give you the backstory. Here's California's Callin'.
Going on too many sleepless nights without you here by my side is so unbearable to me. I see you in pictures, you're so beautiful. My eyes burn for you. I just thought you should know, do I have your attention now, now, California's calling me.
So California's Calling. Let's talk about this one, shall we? Boy, I'm going to come across like a real douche. So back in these days, I was on MySpace a lot, and, you know, I would talk to girls. You know, I was never so good with people locally. You know, I was always so shy and nervous, but I always talked to a bunch of people that lived out of state. I was almost like in internet relationships, like long distance relationships with different people, which is, I don't know, I guess it's strange to some, but I was young and stupid. Like, this time in my life, I have a hard time judging myself on any time in this life because I was just so young and stupid. Like, just so stupid. But the people I talked to were cool, including this one girl. I can't even pronounce her name, so I'm not even going to butcher it for you. But let's just say this girl, she was, oh God, man, she was so beautiful. I remember the first time I saw her, I was like, you are so freaking beautiful. And we talked for probably 2 years before I wrote this song. So it's not like, oh, I just met her and I wrote this song. I had always joked with her, I'm going to fly out to California, I'm going to take you out and you're going to fall in love with me, blah, blah, you know, all this stuff that you say. It's just who I was. I was a different person 10 years ago, let me tell you. You know, getting in these long distance relationships and not acting on anything, not actually putting forth the effort to travel there. Because I have a feeling that if I flew out there, there's a possibility she would have either thought I was crazy or, you know, she was also into it, I think, to a certain degree. So maybe she would have appreciated it in some way. But anyway. So 2 years in, and I write this song called California's Call, and I really wanted it to be like, you know, a tribute to her in a way, but it was more like, do I have your attention? Because she started dating this guy, and hashtag jealous Gary was out and about on the prowl. I was like, she's dating this guy, and I looked at this guy, and I'm like, okay, look, I'm fat, right? Like, I'm a fat dude, okay? I was less fat then. I got more fat, and now I'm less fat now. I'm not quite as small as I was then, but anyway. And not necessarily this guy was fat. Like, because I was crushing on this girl, I judged this guy. Like, I'm like, oh, who the hell is this guy, right? Like, he looked so seen, like black hair, like wet black hair and eyeliner. And this girl didn't really do a lot of that. Anyway, so I'm like, this guy probably thinks he's so seen. And that's how the song ends. You won't hear that in the clip, but that's how the song ends. It's like, and P.S., I'm more seen than your boyfriend will ever be. Just so douchey. Oh, God, it's so douchey. And I was a little bit bitter about it because I was just like, you know, she's talking to me like, you know, we're cool, but she's dating this guy. And that's how the song ends. It's like, I'm singing the part. I'm like, you were always mine. You were always mine. You were always my favorite little tease. And then P.S., I'm more seen than your boyfriend could ever be. Like the douchiest emo lyrics on planet Earth. But I love this song. Sorry. I must say that. I don't know if Starlit Eyes ever reunited for a show, like singing these words would probably give me deuce chills, but I love the song. I'm sorry, I can't fight it. So anyway, we record the song and I sent it to her and I said, I wrote this song and it's about you. And she was really surprised. Like, oh, you didn't have to do this. You shouldn't have done this, blah, 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 blah. And then she comes back to me and she's like, but I really liked it. I sent it to her before we put it out anywhere because I wanted to show off, hopefully impress her. Not that I was going to fly to California or anything, but whatever. And then I just decide, you know what? Screw it. Because back then, again, I was just very screwed up in the head. Like, I was arrogant to a certain degree. I'm like, I'm going to private message her boyfriend and send him this song. So I message him from the band's account. And this is not entirely uncommon because back in the day, if you wanted to promote your band on MySpace, you had to just find random ass people. Now, the smart thing to do would be to target places you wanted to go, find people in those areas and fan them up because, you know, eventually you could go and play shows in those areas. But sometimes we just send random messages. Point is, I messaged him like, hey, dude, I seen you're into some of the similar bands that, like, you know, is our style. We just released this song called California's Calling. I think you might like it. You're from California. You like our kind of music. I think you'll be into it. I literally said something to that effect. Like, yeah, you're from California. You like our kind of music. This guy comes back with, oh yeah, aren't you the guys with that, aren't you the band with that creepy singer fag who wrote a song about my girlfriend? And I just smiled. Cause I'm like, if he's coming at me like that, he must be really pissed. So I just blocked him, but I thought that was funny. I never did hear from him on my personal page, so I'm surprised he didn't like go to her and find out what my page was and like message me or whatever. But that was funny that he wrote that. And I was like, okay, I struck a nerve. And I had actually messaged her later that I'm like, oh, I heard from your boyfriend today. She's like, yeah, why the hell did you message him? Like what the hell, dude? Like, why are you messaging my boyfriend and sending him a song that you wrote about me? Because at that time I just didn't give a damn. I was arrogant. I didn't give a crap. Okay. Anyway, by the way, she did come back. She said, you know, I still think the song was sweet though. And I'm like, all right, I still got you. I haven't talked to her in forever. I think she ended up meeting this really, really, really nice guy, and they're probably married by now, but good for her. I'm thrilled for her. So back to 2006. So anyway, Starlit Eyes, we're playing a bunch of shows. We're playing Jack's a lot, which is that club. They still have not ended Jack's yet. It's before it became Club Empire, which different people bought out Jack's like a year or two after this band. The thing was, by the time we got to 2007, I just really got burned out. And it was unfortunate too, because we put out that 4-song EP and people were showing up to shows and they knew the words. Like, we played this really amazing, fun show at a place called Janet's Java in Alexandria, this little coffee shop. Place was packed. I mean, you could barely walk in there. That's how packed it was. And we were the headliners. Like, people were there in part to see us in addition to the other bands. And I was just like, wow, this is so cool. And I'm doing California's Calling or Midnight Lush or one of these songs, and I throw out the mic and people are singing the words to me. I'm blown away. I'm into it. I dig it. We were starting to get some momentum going. But by the time 2007 came around, I was just getting so burnt out. Like, I remember I was working on lyrics for some of the newer songs, and I was having a lot of trouble. I was kind of getting into like a writer's block. The correct thing to do would have been to go to the band and say, hey guys, I'm kind of going through some stuff here. I'm having difficulty producing songs. I need a break, maybe, instead of out and out, I need to quit the band. But long story short, I messaged them on MySpace. Yes, on MySpace. And I was like, guys, I'm leaving the band. And they were not happy about this. like not thrilled that I was leaving the band, because they had put all this time, I guess, into continuing the band, going on, and I'm joining the band, and we're playing shows, we're recording, I don't blame them for being pissed, but I had to bow out. I was done. And they ended up getting this other guy, Tyler, and I think the band went on for maybe a year after that, and then they broke up. Because, a lot of those guys were going to college anyway. LJ and Chris and Brian. I mean, these guys were all going to college. Not to say that, we couldn't continue, but I was going through so many personal demons at the time as well. Like, there was a lot of stuff going on. Like, at this time, I was about to be separated from my first wife. And so I was going through just a ton of stuff. And it was just so emotionally draining. And I should have taken that energy and written music with it, but I just didn't. And thus I quit the band. And that was the end of my final band that I was in. During the time I was in this band, I was writing solo stuff as well. One of the songs you can actually find on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play. If you just type in Gary Cantrell and look up the first result, like, check it out. It's up there. Matter of fact, I'll put it up in my Instagram story. I'm talking about like this now, like I'm going to do it now, and you guys are going to go listen. But it's not really something I've explored all that often, talking about it recently. But I did put out another song. I did put out a song on iTunes years ago. It's called Another Day. It was written for my ex-wife. Long story short about this song was, we were having a ton of problems. I mean, that whole marriage was just doomed from the start. And I'm not saying anything that I shouldn't be saying. I feel like she would probably say the same thing or something close to that. But it was just not a good, it just didn't work. Point is, I was trying to save it at one point, and I was like, let me write a song. I was big into the movie La Bamba. Richie Valens, he calls Donna on the phone. It's like, I wrote the song Donna for you. Like, that was the moment I wanted to have. I called up my wife. She worked the night shift. I worked the day shift. We never saw each other. I called her on our way home and played her Another Day over the phone, and she started crying. And it saved my marriage for a few more months. And that song's on iTunes. And it's on streaming too. I mean, you can listen to it for free. You don't have to buy it. If you want to buy it and help me out, please do. I get maybe 3 pennies off of it, but streaming it helps too. But I wanted to have that moment from La Bamba where he calls Donna and says, Richie Valens calls Donna and says, hey, the song's for you, and plays her the song. Like, that was the moment I was trying to have with the song. It was like a Hail Mary pass, 3 seconds left in the game. You got to score this touchdown to win the game. Like, and the guy catches it. Like, that's the moment I had in my mind when I wrote this song and I played it for her on the phone. So I was always doing solo stuff, but I never really got super serious with it. There was another song that I wrote called Completely Incomplete, which oddly enough remained incomplete for years, about 10 years, until last year my cousin Larry and I reunited, and we reconnected and formed a group called The Yielding. And please don't ask me what the fuck that means, because I don't know. It was Larry's idea. He at one point explained it to me. It made sense, and I forgot. I'm sorry. Larry and I released 2 songs under the moniker The Yielding, Completely Incomplete and The Ocean Speaks Your Name, both of which are also on iTunes. So there you go. With that being said, I'm almost an hour and a half in, and that's pretty much my musical history as best as I can recall it. I hope you guys enjoyed some of the clips of stuff. And give me a feedback. What do you guys think was the best band I was in? There's a good way to gauge it right there. I'm playing you clips from every band I was in. Which band do you think was the best out of all those bands? And don't even lie. Give me your honest take. I want to know. I want to hear from everybody that listens to this show, that really listened to it through and through. I want you to send me a DM on Instagram and tell me, at Gary Cantrell, which one of these bands was your favorite, just out of curiosity. Anyways, I love you guys. Thank you so much. If you made it this far, an hour and 20 something into the show, if you made it this far, you guys are real fans, man. I love you guys, listeners of the show. I do appreciate all your support. Again, whether this is your first episode or you've listened to 2 to 4 episodes or you've listened since the beginning or you went back and binged a bunch of, I appreciate everybody that takes the time to listen to any dumb thing that comes out of my mouth on this podcast. So thank you guys so much for the support. I'm going to bow out. I don't know what next week is going to bring, but we'll see. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll talk to you again next week.